in the previous session about the intro part of portfolio management. So before we have started with portfolio management, we have even discussed about the lean process, because what exactly the lean process is all about. Because lean is a process which is something like JIT, because earlier it was called as JIT, just in time. So like that, there is a process called lean, which is extensively used in manufacturing industries in most of the occasions, wherein to reduce the wastage of production material followed by the manpower, all that, so that you can control the cost of the production, so that the cost of the product will be stabilized accordingly. By keeping view in this into consideration, there is a lean process which uses by the manufacturing industries for a very long time. So this lean process is a combination of Kanban, because Kanban is majorly used for maximizing the work even in the late development stages. Even at the same time, whatever the amount of work we are taking, everything will be taken in a form of task, so that the amount of time you are spending in order to make it completed on time is what generally they follow the process of lean Kanban. So whatever we have discussed in the previous session about the portfolio management in reference to the agile environment, where it is slightly varying from lean portfolio management. So there are two different things. One is agile portfolio management. The concept of portfolio management is one the same. Portfolio management concept never changes. That is same as usual. But whatever the portfolio management we were following when you follow agile environment, or else when you follow the agile practices and all, everything have some slight variation. So this lean portfolio management, when we see, it is majorly focusing on applying the lean principles and all, everything, which is majorly connect between the strategy of the business with execution, majorly focused towards the senior management level. This is the first thing which normally lean portfolio management is majorly focuses on. Most of the organizations, as we see, has a trouble in connecting these two things, because what strategy they have identified, in order to reach that strategy to an extent possible of execution, how they are going to implement all these things were matters, because strategy of what we have built the strategy is not only sufficient. Along with building up the strategy and all, we have to implement that equally in a perfect manner. So for that reason, there is a tactics which has to be followed. At the same time, there must be a proper execution which must be taken place here. So lean process, lean portfolio process or lean portfolio management majorly focuses on how the senior management team has to apply the lean principles in order to connect the kind of business strategy what they have identified, because this business strategy for a long-term perspective which any business requires, maybe in order to reach that strategy, whatever the goals do we have and all, everything may have some variation. There may be some long-term goals, there may be some short-term goals and all, everything. That's a different level altogether. So we need to know about how this strategy and all, everything is connecting to the execution is what we have to see. This is the first point. At the same time, this lean portfolio management also has a plan, or also has an understanding about how to align this with agile development when we follow. Because if you see, majorly nowadays in development of the solutions, what is that we were following from few years are three, because major processes I can say, especially in IT or non-IT, in terms of the process or in terms of the implementation of the solution or a process, whatever it is, majorly depending on three different areas. One is about the agile process, which has been introduced in the sector of IT and as well as non-IT, where most of the companies were transforming towards agile environment. This is one. Second, they are adopting the lean process and principles, which are we going to discuss now in reference to the portfolio management. Third, DevOps environment, because if you closely see nowadays, earlier if you see, earlier in the beginning days, there is a clear distinction between the development and operations, because there is a different separate team for development we see earlier. At the same time, we'll be having a separate team even for deployment of the particular solution or the application at the client environment. So as there are two different teams, there are possibilities of understanding might be taken place sometimes. By keeping view this into consideration, normally there is an environment or an environment which was created in IT, especially in IT development, which is called as DevOps, right? This is the third one. DevOps means development and operations. Means in this development and operations, there is a continuous integration and deployment and delivery required. Because if you see the client needs and expectations in the previous years, in the before that, down the maybe before 10 years, somewhere around 10-15 years, customer doesn't have much requirement volatility. Whatever is given by the customer used to stand on the requirements what they have given, and whatever the timelines we used to provide, customer used to follow the same, and we used to deliver the project. This is how generally the structure we followed for a very long time. But due to the global changes happens, due to the competition, due to the market demands, expectations, all that, customer wants new changes and new innovations in their business process, which must be adopted with immediate effect. This is where the concept called CI and CD comes into picture, means continuous integration, at the same time continuous deployment and delivery, right? This is how generally the process which has been implemented. Why? Because if you closely see, this is something connecting to the strategies what customer wants to implement, because implementation is what the difficulty in most of the organizations is what we observe. It's not only about the business strategy, but apart from the business strategy, we even see what are the different implementation techniques and processes are they following, and what kind of changes they are making, and how are they making changes, all that stuff. So DevOps environment is also introduced nowadays, where there is a tri combination, like three combinations. One is about the lean process being adopted by few organizations. Agile implementation is taking in the second level, wherein DevOps environment is also getting integrating into this. But of course, here we don't deal with DevOps, all that stuff, end of the day, in the lean portfolio management, subject to the requirements of the organization that will be varying from one to another. It is not the same for all the people. But in this lean portfolio management, it majorly emphasizes to align whatever the agile developments and all, everything with the business strategy, what customer is having. Major focus towards providing the value and all, everything to the customer requirements, and as well as the solutions what they were expecting. Because end of the day, what solution are we going to provide? How beneficial the solution it will be, and how long the solution is being useful for the customer in order to reach their targets and all, everything is essentially required. Hence, lean portfolio management is something closely associated with agile development, because lean is a process, agile is a way of approach. There are two different things. Lean is a process of understanding, either it may be a business process or it may be manufacturing something, Wherein agile and all everything, something relating to a way of approach, I can say. Agile development and all way of approach, where this is being aligned with the kind of business strategies what customer is having, all that stuff. So lean portfolio management majorly focuses on two different things, as I mentioned. One is about how the senior management and the leadership and what way they require to apply the lean principles and all everything to connect the strategy towards the execution. At the same time, it emphasizes to align agile development and all with the business strategy, where the focus must be such a way where it must be provided a value-added services to the customer by the way of developing a products or its solutions. Because sometimes product developments means depends on the market needs, depends on the customer requirements. They may be required for them to develop the product. This product may not be an IT or a software product all the time, right? So there may be a product which is maybe something else apart, right? So what kind of products you are going to develop and what are the solutions and all everything is being used for that, right? So this is what generally in brief lean portfolio management is all about. Now, what are the different objectives do we have in lean portfolio management? Because objectives is what we want to achieve through this lean implementation of lean portfolio management. What kind of objectives do we require to achieve is what is required here. Now, objectives of lean portfolio management will be categorized into three different things. One is to maximize the value, output of the value, because providing value added services and increasing the value of the particular product or the solution is a continuous process. Because as we have discussed sometime back, even a couple of times earlier, even business strategy is to multiply the business of the customer, providing quality services and all everything for the customer perspective. So for that, we need to maximize as extent as it is required by providing different value added services and all everything into that is the first point. Second, through this lean portfolio management, there are more chances where we can prevent the bottlenecks, means last minute implementations or last minute changes or last minute observations what we have identified and doing and all everything can be prevented, because last minute changes or updations may leads to the decrease of quality, because of course even though we provide solutions and all, it may decreases the quality of the product or the solution what is that you're going to develop. So it prevents the bottlenecks, where by implementing the lean process as I stated, especially in reference to the manufacturing in connect to the IT, I'm talking about this. Let's say that we are manufacturing a product where we want to make some changes on the existing design, a minor design, of course, not the major designs were a lot, but the minor designs has to be made into the existing design what they have prepared so far. So last minute changes, either minor changes, depends on the business strategy, maybe in between, which might have been changed to an extent. They may require some sort of changes to be made into the existing thing, which that lean process will allow us to do that, so that we can prevent the bottlenecks of doing in the last minute changes and all everything here itself. So if you are implementing those lean processes and all, so that you can reduce the wastage of components, because unnecessary components wastage and all everything, or not able in a position to understand what are the last minute changes or last minute add-ons and all everything. In order to reduce that, generally this preventing of bottlenecks and all everything is being used. So this is also another objective under lean portfolio management. At the same time, demonstrating leaderships, servant leadership and all is also another objective behind lean portfolio management is. So implementation of lean portfolio management majorly leads on these 3 points. One is to maximize the value. Second, reduce and as well as prevent the bottlenecks at last minute changes, all that. At the same time, demonstrating servant leadership are the objectives under portfolio management. When we talk about the ways of portfolio management, as we have discussed even earlier, there is business portfolio management, which majorly focusing on the business goal, vision, all that. Product portfolio management completely focusing on the particular product. What is that are we going to develop based upon the demand, all that stuff. That's all comes under product portfolio. Next, project portfolio. So here is a difference wherein we need to understand how different the product to project is. The difference in a more simple terms, if you understand, project development doesn't mean the solution you are going to provide for a particular customer according to the needs of that particular enterprise and whatever the customizations and all everything we were doing for a particular client or for a customer. That's what we call it as project. Whatever the solution you are going to provide is completely relating to that particular enterprise, not for anything else apart. But when you talk about the product related product portfolio management completely focusing on the product level, means whatever the products you are going to develop based upon the observation of the competitor, because by doing some competitive analysis, all that, so we need to develop the product. So for that, how much budget is required, so what sort of technical and higher technical requirements do we need it, how to launch it, right, how to identify and how we should make the difference among the competitor products. So this sort of comes under the product development part, because this is an investment which has to be made by the people on their own. At the same time, whatever the investment in terms of the budget and manpower has to be invested by them alone. So based on the budget which was allocated by them, implementation and all everything will be taking place further. This is what comes under the product portfolio, all that. So project portfolio, sometime back I have told you. Next, IT project portfolio management. IT project portfolios completely focusing on IT projects. At the same time, lean portfolio management is what are we going to discuss in detail now. When you talk about the lean portfolio management has the diagram shows where there are 6 dimensions are there in lean portfolio management. These 6 dimensions are essentially important when we want to implement it successfully in our business. The first thing about mission, second vision, you know it, third values, 4 long-term goals, 5 themes followed by initiatives. So these are the 6 dimensions which we need to understand in reference to the lean portfolio management is. Now, what is meant by mission? Mission is something that what is that we want to start depends on the kind of vision what we have, because vision and mission has an interconnectivity. Because any organization you see, every organization is depending on 3 different things. Any organization, right from the inception level, if they work, because if you know about the goal or if you know about the way of doing business for any organization, is being depending on 3 different aspects. One is about the vision. Second, we call it as vision. Third, first is we call it as vision. Second, we call it as mission. Followed by the kind of business goals and objectives. What is that they want to achieve? These business goals might be a long-term business goals or maybe a short-term business goals initially to start with. So there are 2 different dimensions which need to be understood first, which is mission and as well as vision here. Wherein mission is completely focusing on that implementation of the connectivity which we have in reference to the reach to the target. What is that you are going to achieve out of it? This is what we call it as vision stands for. Hence, vision and as well as the mission statement will have an interconnect, means how you are going to work, right? What is the work style you are going to follow in order to reach your targets is what the interconnection between the vision and mission is all about. So these are the two major dimensions we have to keep in mind when we are planning to implement the lean portfolio management. Of course, more or less all the portfolio managements have the same points, but there will be some changes in terms of the lean principles and practices. What is that we are following? Otherwise, the portfolio management concept remains same and constant in each and every level. At the same time, values. What kind of value system and what are the values and principles are we adopting? This is something like the value system we see in agile environment. Because if you see in agile, there is a value system as well as the principles which was enabled and which has to be adopted by the people who are working in the agile environment. Because you may be good at technical, right? You may be good at functional level, but as long as the performance will be elevated, as long as we are following the right principles and value systems of the agile system is all about. As long as we are following the right value systems and principles within that particular object, within that particular orbit, whatever the technical skills and functional skills we have imparted so far will be elevated to the next level. This is the reason why value system and as well as the values will be taken into an account. At the same time, we need to be focused more on the long-term goals. Means how to reach these long-term goals is required. So in order to reach those long-term goals and all that, of course, there are some short-term goals which has to be designed by us. This is in a form of solution and all everything will be provided by us when you are developing some solutions to the customer. Remember, customer wants to achieve their goals in near times in terms of the long-term goals. Long-term goals will be planned by the customer down the line for the next 5 years. In order to reach those long-term goals and all, there will be couple of short-term goals which will be implemented, which will be planned by the customer. In order to implement those things and all, they might require some kind of solutions to be prepared or solutions has to be given by us, wherein this is all something connecting to the long-term goals here. At the same time, we need to be focused and we need to have a clear understanding about the themes, right? What are all is important for us at this point in time is also required. Means whether we need to see the reality, what is that is required in this reality and how, in what way this can be implemented, in what way this we are implementing in real environment is what we need to see. This is what we call it as theme stands for, right? So theme, something essentially needed relating to this. This is what generally we call it as theme, right? How it is important, what is that most important thing which we have identified now, right? How to implement that themes and all everything. So those are essentially required when we want to implement this. At the same time, initiatives is also required. What kind of initiative we have taken into an account and how we have taken this initiative, how we are moving further to the next level is what we need to know prior to this. So these are the 6 dimensions which lean portfolio management majorly focuses on. The first is about the mission, as what I stated and mentioned earlier. Followed by this, vision is also required. At the same time, what are the value systems and principles which we are adopting for very uh, uh, for a long time purpose and all that? So what are the values and all everything are we adopting here? And what are the long-term goals we want to achieve, followed by the kind of themes and as well as the initiatives we want to take in order to make it more convenient and successful. So these are the 6 different dimensions which we have to see in reference to the lean portfolio management. We have to be focused more of when we want to follow the lean portfolio management and all everything. In a process of providing solutions for any of the customer requirements is all about. So this is all about the lean portfolio management. If you have any questions in this regard, please go ahead.
No, Raj.
Any questions on this earlier
No.
ones or this one?
No.
Earlier we have discussed about agile portfolio management And now this is lean, because these are the three different areas, three different distinctions we need to see. One is lean process, second is agile process, third is DevOps environment, because these are the three different environments which are be integrating nowadays in any of the organization. So this is all about lean portfolio management is all about.